Okay, so thanks everybody for coming tonight. I know it's cold out and everybody wants to be somewhere warm. Luckily, this place is warm. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nate. I run an organization called Goodnik, which started as a meetup group and then became a sort of larger organization and then stopped doing meetups for a while. And this is actually my first meetup after a long. But the last year has been spent doing a lot of fun. So you're back sort of for the first event that we've had in quite some time, and I hope it's going to be a regular event. This event is a series that we've called the Demo Day, and the idea is that we have a number of people who are part of our Goodnik in Residence program, and other people who are part of the Goodnik community, who are doing awesome things in the social impact space, and who we want to give an opportunity to kind of show that off. And so that's the idea behind the Demo Day. A little bit of background about the organization. Our basic mission is to support social entrepreneurs and social impact organizations, regardless of whether they're nonprofit or for-profit. We're business model agnostic. And we do that in a couple of different ways. We do these meetups, which we're going to be doing on a hopefully quarterly basis, if not monthly basis, as I kind of roll back up to speed. We have a program that's called the Goodnik in Residence program, which is a program that puts social impact organizations into co-working spaces, gives them free access to co-working spaces for a limited amount of time so that they can kind of get their organization off the ground, get it rolling, and then hopefully once they're funded or find some sustainable model are able to then become a member of a co-working space. And then we also have a program that is just launching this month, which is a program called Goodniks, which is a sort of a volunteer matching system or skills sharing platform, I guess is a better way of putting it, that allows people like yourselves to put out requests for skills that you need help with, and also put yourselves out there as people who can help other organizations or other people with skills. And that could be a professional skill like marketing, business development, grant writing, or those kinds of things. If you're signed up for this meetup, or if you're signed up for my mailing list, or if you're signed up for Goodniks already, you're going to get some announcements in the next month about this program. There's some big changes coming up. I encourage you all to sign up if you haven't already. If you're not, how many people are signed up for this meetup? All right. So basically everybody. Okay. So if you haven't already, sign up on the meetup page. That's the easiest way to make sure that you get notified about new events, and then also get access to newsletters and other things like that. So a little bit about our host tonight. How many people have been in this space before? All right, very few. How many people have been in a co-working space before? Okay, most of you. So you know co-working. Co-working is essentially a shared office space. In this case, our host is New Work City. It's run by Tony Bacigalupo, who is not around, and Peter Chislett, who are good friends of mine. This is an awesome space with a great community feel. If you're looking for a co-working space that is more than just a rent-a-desk, this is a great community to be a part of. I've been helping out here since they got this space, and I really love the community here. And they're very supportive with Goodnik activities. So that's the background, and I won't take up any more time. Let me tell you a little bit about the format tonight. Each of the speakers is going to have about 5 minutes, and I say that with the expectation that everybody's going to go a little bit over, but that we do have a lot of speakers tonight, and so I want everybody to try and be concise in their presentation about what they're doing and about what kind of impact they're having. And then what we're going to do is hopefully hold questions until the end. So please write down any questions you have for specific speakers. And we'll do a Q&A at the end just to allow for an easier sort of moving along of the whole thing. So with that said, we're going to start with Brett. Robert Tolmack, who is with ClassWish, is unable to come tonight, but he's promised to be at the next one. Then we're going to go to Ron Suarez, Michal Alter, Patrick O'Neill, and Wendy. Where's Wendy? Wendy Brawer with Green Maps. And so with that introduction, Brett, do you want to step up and tell us what you're working on? And introduce yourself and give a little bit of background.
Give him the mic.
Oh yes, I'll give him the mic.
Connection here. Just 1 second. Okay. Hi, so my name is Brett. I'm a software developer, and I like to build websites and iPhone apps. And
Speak up, please.
sorry,
Speak up.
yes, my name is Brett. I'm a software developer. I like to build websites and iPhone apps. And on the side, I came up with an idea, and I've been working on it. It's really just a side project, but I wanted to share with people and maybe get some collaborators or just feedback. But the general idea is that I like to learn. I like to search Google or read Wikipedia. If I'm on the bus, I like to read a book or read news articles or on the subway. And I was thinking about how I go about this process and trying to think of a better way to use my time, because I'll end up wasting more time than I would like, and maybe not learning subjects as well as I would like. So the idea that I came up with, and it's manifesting itself in an app, at least at this stage, is you can go in and you can search basically for any subject that you like. So I'll just show you the demo here. We'll search. And I guess today's supposed to be Steve Jobs' birthday, so I'll search for Steve Jobs. It comes up with a list of suggestions. The first one there looks good. So now it loaded. This is basically the Wikipedia article for Steve Jobs. So say, okay, I'm going to add this to my reading list. And what that's going to do is it's not only going to take the main Steve Jobs article, but it's going to use some various APIs and some algorithms that I wrote to come up with a reading list of things that I could read about Steve Jobs just besides his basic characteristics. So this one's actually loading in the background right now, but I'll load one here that I read, that I generated previously. So you can see there's a main article for him, but it's also about obviously Apple, but it's also about some history of technology that he was involved in, some products that he's been a part of, some books and documentaries that he's been a part of. So this is all generated algorithmically. And this works for, not perfect, it's still work in progress, but this works for all sorts of people and all sorts of subjects. So if we look at the American Civil War, it has all different people who were involved with it, different events, the different weaponry. If we go to Arnold Schwarzenegger, we can see that it has some of his films, some better than others, has actually some of his political ties, Western Climate Initiative I see. We can look at a massive subject like astronomy, and we can see some important people in the history of astronomy and maybe some different books on the subject. And you can look for the National Football League. You can have some players and some history about the game. So this really works for all different sorts of subjects. Now, beyond just saying, okay, well, I can go in here and I can read the articles, there's also a feature that you can use that is the text to voice. So I can go in here and I can just around. I can go and read the articles through the headphones. I can play, I can skip tracks like I would on iTunes. So this is just a way I can transfer back and forth and continue learning. I thought that was just something that I would use on my regular day of commute to and from work type of thing. Finally, more recently, I've been working on an extra part of the algorithm, which is testing your knowledge. So the idea is that I'm generating then ways of questions based on the subject. So it doesn't work necessarily with everything yet, it's still work in progress, but if we use the example of Steve Jobs here, it came up with 9 questions. And we can see as a person is a child of Steve Jobs, and I probably should fake the last names. I'm working on the algorithm, but it generates a list of names that could be appropriate for stuff like maybe who was the CEO of a company, or who they went to school with, or something like that. So working on this, obviously the last name is Jobs, that makes it easy. But what's his alma mater? Anybody know where it's school? Reed College, correct? Yes. And what year was he born? Anybody?
51.
51? Wrong. I don't even show you what it is. I'm not very helpful. But so you get the idea. And this works for various subjects. So if you go to National Football League, it only has 2 questions, but it says, what year was it founded? I'll try 1923. No. Who is the CEO of the National Football League? Anybody? It's Roger Goodell, so I know that one. So this kind of is a way just to kind of verify, and right now it doesn't do anything beyond just ask the questions, but it could be a way to say, okay, well, maybe it requires you to read the subject, and then it'll test you on it, and these are all, you know, randomly generated other answer choices. So maybe somebody with like an educational background would have a better idea of me of generating some of these different types of questions, maybe true, false, or fill in the blank and stuff like that, which could be pretty interesting. But that's basically what I've been working on, and I think it has some potential. It's not ready yet for the App Store, and I don't have a name for it, and haven't spent much time on the UI or anything else, but I just think it's a kind of an interesting way to learn about a subject and maybe test your mastery, and I think it could be interesting. So that's it.
So up next we have Ron Suarez, who mic for me.
Yes, that would be good.
Who has been a Goodnik member since Goodnik was founded. One of our pioneer members.
And almost a pioneer member of Newark City. I joined Newark City in 2009 when I relocated back to New York, to my hometown. So there's no amplification on this. I have to do my own amplification, I guess. So I'm a former psychology professor a long time ago, turned serial software entrepreneur. I've done 4 different startups over the years. And we're not getting anything on the projector. Let's see.
Make sure you're.
So this is, I got a video of this that was in, and this is a slightly shorter of things. Refrigerator talking to your toaster. PR, explain a little. Have going to turn, instead of just computers having your, almost any kind of device, things that your automobile passes, your air, problems with climate change, I think are the biggest problem that we face on the planet now. And the Internet of Things is being predicted to be the most positive, biggest technology change that's going on. So why not solve the biggest problem with what people are saying is the best solution? So I have the red things on the left. This is a Texas Instruments sensor tag. It's got a lot of the same technology that's in your phone, plus more. This can measure temperature, pressure, humidity, a whole bunch of other things. The thing in the middle is the Raspberry Pi. That's a $35 Linux computer, originally created in the UK for, why did we lose the signal? It was created in the UK to teach kids about computing. Is that coming back around, Peter? Okay, there we go. A simple router to connect to the internet. So the sensor tags speak Bluetooth, and the Raspberry Pi can communicate with Wi-Fi. So you could put a bunch of these around a skyscraper, a public school, a hospital, housing project, and be able to monitor what's going on. And the Raspberry Pi will bring together information from a bunch of them, and then a bunch of Raspberry Pis can be talking over Wi-Fi, and in the end, on your phone. So how many people have heard of Nest or seen that when you go into Home Depot? Google paid almost $3 billion for Nest. So with that, you can control things. Nest is a smart thermostat. So if you have a Nest thermostat in your home, you could be at work and have the air conditioner low during the day, but then before you get on the subway to go home, when you finally know that you're able to leave work, as opposed to setting it for a time in advance, which is not the time you really get home, you can control it from your phone. So the idea is that from your phone you can monitor what's going on, and you can control things. So there are, I'm not sure why, okay, hold on. All right, so lots of predictions. I won't go into the details in the interest of time. Even the Pope is writing an encyclical on climate change. So it's pretty clear that lots of people are taking climate change very seriously. Why haven't we done it so far? Besides the fact that we have a Congress that can hardly do almost anything. People have thought, well, we can't afford to do it now. But I would make the argument that if you look at the next 30 years and what things are going to cost over the next 30 years, even if we didn't have to save the planet from climate change, this approach is cheaper. The November issue of the Harvard Business Review had a whole bunch of articles on the Internet of Things, and they talked about problems with business in the past decade. Even though profitability is way up, there's been slow growth, slower job growth, not much improvement in wages and living standards. So what does the future hold for us? Should we despair about what's going on, or is there hope for the future? So I've created this platform of networks, and it's iotforclimate.net. Anybody can join, and we're all about open source and standards and looking to help people collaborate with each other around these issues and crowdsource solutions. Right now, there's only we've just gotten started. There are a few of us, people I've known for 5 to 20 years, and people already doing work in the area. So the kinds of things that we're looking at is how do you take existing systems that are fossil-based and cut the waste in those systems, and also how do you quantify the return on investment in alternative energy solutions. So I'd like to get off fossil fuels tomorrow, but I'm a realist, and I know that just because I want to do that, not everybody else is going to do that, but these techniques offer us a path to do that. And the path is monitor, control, and optimize. So with these kinds of devices, we can monitor what's going on in a given building. If in a skyscraper, there are 50 or hundreds of air conditioners, instead of just doing routine maintenance, whether they need it or not, you could know something needs maintenance sooner than the schedule, or even though you're up to the schedule, it's performing fine. Don't waste the money doing maintenance on something that doesn't need it. And then you can be controlling things with another device called the Arduino. You can be turning things on and off. And then optimize, when you've got millions of these things out there, suddenly you've got all kinds of data. The friends that I'm working with on this, they've already done a solar project for an Indian-owned hotel and casino in Michigan. And they did, outside of Ann Arbor, the greenest brewery east of the Rockies. Internet of Things does this better because just in the past few years, these devices have gotten smaller and cheaper. For people who are interested in knowing about the software, I've got links and other information here that I won't go into detail, but JavaScript is behind a lot of what's going on here. So if you know somebody that's looking for a good career, whether it's this or not, tell them to learn JavaScript if they have any interest in code. I've got information on tools in here. Cloud solutions offer dashboards so that when you've got data from millions of devices like this, these are a few of the cloud solutions. The friends that I'm working with are coming up with their own cloud solution, and a lot of investments going on in these cloud services. Tens of millions of dollars are being invested, so people with money have recognized this is a good space to be in. So our strategy is to build a platform that enables developers to collaborate around solving climate problems by leveraging the emphasis on open source solutions and best practices around standards. And there's a battle going on. A walled garden is like getting something onto the iPhone. The iPhone is a walled garden. The Android is an open phone. It's really easy to launch an app for the Android. It's really a pain in the ass to get something listed in the app directory with Apple and jump through all their hoops. So one of the big challenges going on is walled gardens, where individual companies are trying to own the space. So you can see Intel and various companies trying to make contributions to schools where they'll maybe offer their equipment. I think there are going to be huge opportunities with training, collar to white collar jobs is around or inside of building training and skills. But I think previous is that creation of jobs. We're crowdsourcing solutions. Mayor de Blasio has committed to an 80% reduction in millions of dollars are going to be spent doing it. So, and visit IoTforClimate.net.
Michal, I always
Hi everybody. So I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath. Think for a minute. The last is to think about it and enjoy that. So in a show of hands, how that you had in your imagery, all culture, or local people, local wildlife maybe involved in that scenario. Okay, great. I'm very happy to see that. So I'm happy to see that a lot of you share the kind of experiences that we enjoy when we travel. Now let me ask you a couple of other questions. What if you had a way to add a half-day experience of this kind of experience that you just had in mind? So a half-day experience, no matter where you travel, no matter what your travel itinerary looks like, if you could add a half-day experience with local community, with local culture, with local animal life, with local natural environment. And the second question is, what if we could guarantee to you that this experience and the proceeds from this experience, whatever you'll pay for this experience, we could guarantee that this will go back to the community and will benefit the local community that just hosted you for this experience. So this is exactly what we do at visit.org. My name is Michal Alter. I'm coming from Israel. My background is in computer science and technology, and also a lot of volunteer work with small local nonprofits around the world. This is Violaine, and this is Lauren, and all of us work on visit.org. And let me show you how we do that, which is right now in a beta to go to young children. Some community, see the local culture. So you would love, there is a specific issue that you care about, you can select that, or you can just do all, and then you'll search what kind of activities you could add to your itinerary. And then you'll get a list of different experiences, short experiences, that you can add to your itinerary. So for example, you see that there is an organization that's called the Surfer Kids, and they offer a half-day experience with the local community. What the organization does on a daily basis, they work with local youth with educational programs to empower youth, and they use surfing for their programs. So this organization, in addition to their daily work with the youth and local community, they offer a half-day tour for visitors. They price it in an affordable price. and they give you as a visitor an experience of learning about the work, learning about their mission, perhaps going around their facility, going around the neighborhood, and then also a surfing activity where you'll surf with local team members, perhaps with local youth. Enjoy that experiences, learn about the local community life. So you see all of this information over here. You'll read it. Also the tour price, testimonials and reviews from other users, and you see where it is. And then if you decide to book it, you click the Visit This Org button. You fill out a quick form with your details, and you book the experience. Great. So now you're all set to add this local experience to your itinerary. Our mission at visit.org is to help support great organization by helping them raise funds and awareness for their cause, in addition to the public education side, where international travelers learn about issues and needs of the world. So we get a more intelligent public discussion and policy discussion on the one side, and we get more enhanced missions of great organizations. We identified a very big market of organizations that already offer such tours today, but don't do a good job marketing it on the one side of our marketplace, and on the other side, a lot of travelers like you guys and like us who really enjoy a local experience and would like to add it and would like to make sure that it benefits the local community. And that's what we do. When we onboard organization, that's our main challenge. We have a vetting process, and we also have very clear guidelines and policies for what to include and not include in a tour, for example, and we make sure that your experience is both respectful of. As I said, it's a challenge, it's a lot of work, and we are working very hard to build that community here today because we wanted to invite all of you to join our over here. We have right now 7 countries: Brazil, Israel, Greece, South Africa, India, and here in New York City. This community is growing all the time. We have different kinds of types of involvement. So we have our hub here in New York, where we have local staff, and then we have the country leaders around the world, where we are adding more and more country leaders around the world that are reaching out to local organizations. These are people from the country, from the local sector. They are very familiar with the network and the sector of nonprofit in their countries. And then we have ambassadors. Ambassadors are travelers who want to dedicate their travel to look for great organization and connect them with visit.org. So if you go to the next slide, this is who we are. There's contact information over here, and we welcome you to get involved by taking a tour on your next trip, by referring orgs to us. If you know really great orgs and you have a favorite org that you think could benefit from this, please tell us about it. You can definitely tell your friends. We've been bootstrapping so far, and we are starting to fundraise and prepare for our seed round soon. And you're welcome to follow us on social networks. Thank you.
So up next we have Patrick from AmpYourGood. Do you have a or you just?
I don't. I just brought myself.
Okay. Do you want to put your website up?
Yeah, we could put up.
Why don't you start figure out whether
Oh, okay. So, hi everyone. As Nate said, I'm Pat O'Neill with AmpYourGood, and I don't have a slideshow to show you. I brought an apple and a can of soup, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Some of you may know that Americans are considered some of the most generous people in the world, and the metric that one of the main metrics that's used to talk about that is how much money we donate to nonprofit organizations each year. So the last year for which there's good stats is 2018, and in that year, 300 value organization, somewhere don't attention about. Sometimes it's a little fuzzy. Donate money. It takes a little more work to donate food or a blanket or clothing, but that form of giving remains very popular because you know if you're donating a blanket, you're helping to keep somebody warm. Clothing is going to clothe somebody. Food is going to feed someone. And that's really the powerful thing about goods-based giving. There is, however, a major problem with goods-based giving, and that is the mismatch between what that well-intended donor donates to a certain nonprofit and what that nonprofit organization actually needs. Depending on the kind of charity drive, whether it's food or blankets, so on and so forth, the estimates range from 10% up to 60% of all the goods that get donated through these drives that are never used by the nonprofit organization that receives them. That can be clothes that don't fit. It can be toys that would typically be used by boys, but the organization is looking for toys that would typically be used by girls. And I can give you plenty of other examples where you place a nonprofit in the position that they receive goods that they can't use and they still have to do something with that. Maybe they put it in storage because they'll use it at some point in the future, or maybe they throw it away. And if you talk to a lot of nonprofits whose mission is served in part by goods that they receive, you'll find out that they spend a lot of money throwing things away. So what we have done at AMP is we have developed a platform that works in many ways similar to crowdfunding platforms, with one major exception. Crowdfunding platforms, as I presume most of you know, are designed to raise money for various causes, various projects and whatnot. What our platform does is we host drives that are designed to raise goods that charities need. And all the ways or the process by which crowdfunding sites work really match with what our system works by, with just a couple of small, simple differences. I'll talk about this in the context of a food drive, which is the thing that we tend to work on the most. And let me ask, has anybody here ever donated to a food drive or run a food drive? Okay, that's most of you. It turns out that food drives and donations to food drives is probably the most common charitable activity in our country. There are millions of food drives that are run each year by all kinds of organizations, schools, faith-based organizations, companies, and probably over 100 million is very, very system hosts for drive on our system. We create an organization that's going to be, things are that they're reeled into our platform, and you seek to make a donation, button, and up pops a set of products. You buy them over, AMP delivery to the food pantry, the soup. What we essentially have is a sort of a mini so that donating, you can be certain that the organization that's receiving it has raised their hand to say, this is actually what we need. And so what we wind up delivering to these organizations are brand new food items, just as if you had gone to the store to bring it to a collection point. And from the nonprofit's perspective, they know that everything that they receive via a drive that's held on our site matches what they need. It takes quite a burden off of them. So, we grow pretty quickly since we launched. Not every kind of drive that I mentioned are we able to host right now. For humanity, for instance, so we're hosting and so forth about working on is food. You are sort of generally familiar. The reason why I bought a can of soup and an apple is that, it turns out that we talk about hunger in America, but it's probably more rightly called food insecurity, and those terms are used sort of interchangeably. But one of the biggest problems for people who are faced with food insecurity is lack of access to nutritious food. Feeding America, sort of the mothership of hunger organizations in this country, reports that the number one coping mechanism for people who are food insecure is to buy cheap, unhealthy food, junk food, highly processed food. And unfortunately, while food drives are noble and good and have a positive impact, the traditional way of running food drives creates a significant limitation to how they work. And that is that I would think that most of you that have participated in a food drive, you're typically donating non-perishable foodstuffs, cans and boxes of various things, which is a good way to help, but these kinds of foodstuffs tend to be lacking in nutrition, and they tend to have lots of things that we should consume in modest quantities, not big quantities, salt, sugar, fat, those kinds of things. Because of our process where we don't work with physical collection boxes, the drives that we host on our site enable people to donate things like this if they want to, but more importantly, people can donate fresh produce through our site. So we have a way to really amplify, which is how we came up with our name, amplify the good intention that you have. If you have a choice between donating, spending $1 in a can of soup and spending actually less than $1 on an apple, that person that you're helping at the other end of the line is going to be served much better by eating an apple than consuming a can of soup. So I guess I'm probably running a little bit over, so we're at a point now. We're sort of 7 or 8 months past launch. We're most active in talking to all the different kinds of groups that have alignment with the idea of having people donate this instead of that. And our vision with respect to food drives is that over some period of time, we want to create awareness for the groups that sponsor drives and the people that donate to them that there's a way to donate something that has a much bigger impact on the people who need this kind of help. And so someday we hope that when somebody says food drive, what the picture that pops into your head is not this, but it's this. Thanks.
Up next we have Wendy Brawer with Green Maps, and Wendy has been threatening to present at Goodnik for I think almost a year now. And just the dates never work out, and something always happens with my events. And finally, we have Wendy.
Okay.
Able to present.
Oh, thank you so much.
Is that a PowerPoint?
There's something in there.
Okay, I'll set that up for you.
Okay, and I'll take
You do the
this.
mic.
Okay, good. And what I'm talking about so ties this together. It's kind of amazing. I like it. So let me put this thing on. And I've been to these events and I learned so much. So hopefully I can return that favor. Am I on?
Yes.
Yay! Okay. So I'm looking to presentations. Oh, yeah, and there should be the newest one, Goodnik. And let's do the one that says in Habitat first, and then we'll do the .mov. Okay, thanks.
I'm not on the screen.
Oh,
I'm getting it there.
okay. So I'm really a pioneer. I got my first oops, this doesn't look so good. Maybe it will in a second. Thank you. I got my first domain name back in 1995 when I started Green Map System as a global program, and I'm still in the game now in a new way. I want to channel energy, and I want to do this in a way that things are not just survivable, but also thrivable. So I want to talk about a couple different ways. I'm part of a development project for R951, which is a net zero capable passive house 3-family building in Brooklyn. This means this house burns no fossil fuels inside. It's generating all the energy it needs from solar, a 12 kilowatt solar array on the roof. So the people who live there may be some of the very first people in New York who are going to be in a residence that can do this. We wanted to prove you can do it in New York, and not only that, we also wanted to make sure what we're doing is available to... Yeah.
I'm going to switch modes here, sorry.
That's okay. It's also available to people who want to learn. So it's got data tracking by CUNY students. We've had about 400 professionals already come through the building and different tours of it. So Passive house, you bring the energy use down. Solar, you power it up. So I'm also in a community microgrid. It's a startup, and I'm very involved in bicycling here in the city. I consider human power to be among the best returns, and to us individually, to our world, and to our climate. So you can see more of that stuff at wendybrower.com. And you know what? I actually want to switch to the other PDF now that we got that up. Anyhow, you can see it's a real building, and it's almost done. I'm so happy. So now we can just let this movie run. Thank you.
Okay, we actually don't have sound.
It doesn't have sound.
Okay, good.
So I'm the sound.
And nobody has sound.
Yeah, okay, so anyhow, as I mentioned, Green Map is the main project I've been involved with now for about 20 years. We're in the process of going open, and we need lots of help because we want to use the assets we've created in a new way. We have all these critical issues to address, but we also need to build up our resiliency among our communities, and we do this by working together. So our network of local Green Map projects is now in 917 cities in 65 countries, all locally led. So from these slides, you can see how diverse we are. This network doubled in size in response to the Open Green Map project. This is the name we chose for the map-making platform we launched in 2009. And it's now used in 40 countries. We built in all these special features for the very diverse groups of people that we work with, which include city agencies, not-for-profits, universities, kids, and grassroots users around the world. The newest thing we built, and I probably reached out to you to present it last summer, was the mobile site collector. And we actually opted to make a web app rather than a Apple or Android app so that we had less problems keeping it maintained, and so it works on more devices. It's really just a responsive website. But it's got 13 languages built in, and what we created was a fast and fun way to engage more participation. m.opengreenmap.org is that tool. Soon we're going to swing that over to CartoDB. Is anybody here in mapping? I see some people, and people like CartoDB, which is an awesome open source resource, and we think it's going to be the tool our network needs going forward. So right now we need help adding our iconography. You see some of the people in here, the symbol system is what really connects all of us, and that was the thing we co-created at the very beginning to build our relationships, and also to look at nature, culture, social justice, and green living in so many places around the world. So we want to add our icons to that. We have a few other small things we want to do, but so we're looking for coders, people involved with CartoDB, funders, people who want to make new green maps, and maybe that's where your network comes in around the world, that there's a map, or maybe our network can become your network as well. So obviously we're addressing climate change and so many other crises that our communities are facing right now together. We just today set up lab.greenmap.org, so you can check in there, you can talk to me, you can follow us at GreenMap on Twitter and stuff. So we're seeking help, especially because we want to have something ready for State of the Map. This is the OpenStreetMap big event that's happening up at the United Nations in June. So we want to announce there that we're going open. We see it as a process and that it involves our whole network. So it's been very exciting for us to think about how all these projects will be impacted as they're getting more complex, involving more people in their community and more issues. So there's lots of good work ahead, and I actually want to also mention that this year we're kind of especially needy because we just found out we're losing the office that we've had for 8 years. So we're looking for a new place to work, especially Lower Manhattan, but we're a little bit flexible. So if you have ideas about open technology, great space for us, if you want to come over and help us party or hack away in our space before we're gone there, or we're in our new space, please do. I've brought some materials about the building and about the maps and about our iconography. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay,
So if I could ask everybody to just kind of scoot this way so we're all facing the center, right? Come back. Yeah. Great. Joey, do you want to just pass this around, or?
No, just put it on you and I'll use the other one for everybody else.
Okay. So let's start with some questions. Are there any immediate questions, or should I take the convener's privilege and start people off and sort of ask a few of my own? All right. Why don't I get the ball rolling a little bit? So Brett, I thought your product sounded really very interesting and very useful, especially in the educational market and the opportunity really to create education plans and testing around those plans sort of on the fly. How do you see this integrating with teachers and specifically in the educational system, as opposed to sort of like just the sort of off the street guy who wants to learn more about Steve Jobs?
Sure. So I guess when I'm thinking about building stuff, I think about products, but it could certainly use the pieces of the product that I built for more traditional educational uses. So yeah, it could be really interesting for non-app cases where it's exactly as you said. I have no background in education other than being slightly educated. So yeah, if anybody had certain ideas or I guess methods of distribution within education, that would be really interesting. I'd like to hear their perspective because I don't have any means to develop it that way. Mm-hmm. My only means as an individual to really get this thing out here is probably put it out in the store. So that's kind of one of the reasons I came today is people who see a really obvious use for it and have a good business strategy for that, I would like to talk to them.
Well, I think there's a huge opportunity for impact, and I think that I'm excited to see where it goes and happy to talk about that afterwards as well. Michal, one of the things I was curious about with your platform is how much work do you do with the local organizations to help them develop programming? I mean, it seems like a lot of organizations probably have a great need and desire to participate in something like this, but probably a lot of them would flounder around sort of designing something that would be appealing to consumers and that would also be impactful, probably erring too much on the impactful side and not enough on the let's entertain the foreigners kind of side.
Right.
So do you work with organizations and to develop programs, or
yes,
how does
definitely,
that work?
It's really one of the main challenges for us is how to work very efficiently and effectively with this big network of nonprofits that we want to create. So it's about giving them the support that they need, the training that they need to integrate well into this social travel trend, and also about everything else around it, vetting them, making sure that the everything is updated. In many places the technology is not functional, so making sure that we overcome that as well. And that's why our approach is very much hands-on. That's why we need this community. That's why we're building this community around the world. That's why we have local representatives. And when we don't have local representatives, we usually wait until we have local representatives that can actually work with the organizations on the ground and give them all the support and the training that they need. So to answer more directly your question, we work very much hand in hand with the organizations. We build with them when they need the support. We build the itinerary with them. We connect them to tour operators if needed. We make sure that the itinerary that they offer is exciting enough, fun, attractive for travelers, so that actually the travelers will actually consume the product. And at the same time, we make sure that it's impactful. And that it's respectful of the local community, and that is definitely not harmful of the local community.
I think it's a great product, and I just got back from vacation myself, and I think it would have been, and I went with my son, and thought it would have been great to have
Where?
to Hawaii.
Oh,
so it would have been interesting to see if there were opportunities there. Ron, let's talk about IoT for climate. I keep wanting to call it IOTA because I see the 4 as an A, and so anyway. I'm interested to figure out exactly what the plan is for the business model. And it seems like there's a lot of interesting stuff that you're working on. Do you see IoT for Climate being more of a collaboration platform, or is it sort of a sharing platform? Are you moving more in the direction of sort of designs and development of a quirky even, where you're developing products out of these things, or where do you see this going?
Well, certain members are already providing services. You saw the slides of the solar panel installation. That friend of mine has been doing that kind of thing for years, and he just had no way of describing what he hasn't had time to do his own website or promote himself. So I wanted to create a place where people who are doing things can tell their stories. And I wanted to, first myself, starting to learn about it, I started finding myself searching for, okay, what are the different pieces? How does the hardware work? What is the software that people are using? And I found myself starting to create a spreadsheet for myself. And I thought, why should I create a spreadsheet for myself when maybe we should have a product directory and then open it up to kind of crowdsource? So I see it not just about products, but products, people, companies, projects, sort of like Crunchbase tracks startup companies and investment in those companies. Somebody starts off entering it. Over time, I want to create a facility where if you see somebody's entered your product in there, you can claim it and say, oh, well, this is my company, or this is my product, and then take charge of the information that's in there. So working with friends of mine who are already in the space, they're in Michigan, and when de Blasio, friends of mine helped organize the Climate March last September. So I saw the connections between that and wanting to connect people who I knew were working on real solutions. How do we move forward? And Wendy, I really want to follow up with you after this.
Great. So Pat, I want to talk about something that you mentioned that I'm wondering if there has been any work done in this other area. So you talked a lot about organizations having a lot of stuff that they don't need, or getting donations from food drives. And you focus on making sure that their future food drives, or their future product drives, or whatever, goods drives, don't generate a lot of waste. But have you done any work on, or looked at the problem of what to do, or how to make more efficient the sort of the getting rid of the stuff they don't need, or are there solutions around that you thought of?
Yeah, so we collaborate with a handful of other fairly young platforms that really have been put together for that purpose. Really just tools to help nonprofit organizations share information about things that they now have but can't use. And the collaboration is really around the idea of most nonprofit organizations are pretty challenged in terms of bandwidth and learning about and deploying new things. But once we get them thinking about these various efficiencies that can be created with goods, we're sort of a upstream enabler of more efficient goods being delivered to them, and there are other organizations that are downstream around the idea of some great tools. So we work with a set of them that.
So it's a relatively new field of management in terms of
sort of, and so.
For me, where do you?
A lot of it, some of it is related to tourism experience at the place, so or more bicycling or better food choices. So people have been able to actually map out, did this matter in my hometown? Routes for the seniors to get around easily, little income, getting them out. You just meant waste reduction here in New York City. The demo thing in your organizations, right? Your organization works with our city on that. For how it works around the country, I think it really sounds like a great thing to do.
Great. So I'll open it up to questions from the floor, and I encourage you to ask questions, not statements. if you do want to preface it slightly with where you're coming from about an idea or a question, feel free to do that. So we have some questions? And say who it is that you are asking the question of, or if you're looking for a general question. Sorry.
Asking the question about the map project. So you're saying that you have projects all over the world. So how do you work? Do you have offices here? You have people, or you work online? You coaches those young people to map online? Or
You know, we're really lucky because we've grown with maps, right? It wasn't very long ago the map didn't know where you were, and it was like kind of a whole different situation than it is right now. So we work in different ways. A lot of what we do is share stories about what worked. How did people actually generate or support a network of people mapping together? How did they create a map that actually moved their target audience or made their specific issue more apparent to people? And we share the successes and some of the what didn't works. Over time, we've added more and more tools, not necessarily ones that we've created here in New York, but we've helped repurpose tools. For example, in the 4 European countries made a mobilities guide, and we've now translated that from the German and English to Chinese, Hebrew, and Spanish. So we're really that's a big part of our role is synthesizing and sharing the best of. We do have national offices in Cuba, Japan, Indonesia, and Romania, and some of them get very regional about it. So part of what we're doing with Open now is getting people to think not just about their own place, but think about the whole world. And how do we all benefit from what you've learned in your place?
In the back there?
Yeah, this question is for Michal. I know you mentioned, I'm a little confused, I know you mentioned that you don't you don't have any organizations that work with kids, but then you showed the picture of the surfing organization that works with kids. So I was wondering, do you partner with organizations where you can go to another country and work with kids, or not?
And maybe talk about what the why is behind that.
Yeah, sure. So we work with a lot of organizations that work with kids do really great work with kids, right? And are very interesting organizations, and that can a lot of people can benefit from learning from them. So we definitely work with organizations that work with children and youth. However, the policy for the tour itinerary itself is not to include the children in the tour itinerary. And with the surfer organization specifically, over there the interaction is more with the team members of the organizations, less with the children themselves. And if they include youth in the experience, it's more about the older kind of college age. And it's really only at certain on certain occasions that they would offer such an experience with these youth. And it will be for visitors that decide to stay overnight and do a second day there, and after already getting to know the organization and getting all the background and all of that, and then if they join, it's part of the regular programming of the organization. So it's really, we're very sensitive about it, and we say yes to it only when it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And the why, I assume, has something to do with liability and concern about the safety of the children.
Yeah. Part of the reason why we wanted to start Visit.org is if anyone who has read or is familiar with voluntourism, so trips that people do to volunteer abroad, usually it's longer, usually there is a commitment for longer periods of time, and usually there is also a financial commitment there. Usually an average trip like that would be for a couple of weeks and would cost somewhere, above $1,500 to $2,000. So it's really not everyone can afford the time and the money to do that. And also the other kind of criticism that came with some of the volunteerism project is that the volunteer work itself is not really beneficial for the community. So what we were trying to do with Visit.org is actually to kind of flip the power dynamic on the ground. So instead of the traveler or the visitors bringing their skills to support the community, over here it's the community or the organization that has the knowledge and the power, and they are the one who are teaching, and the visitors are actually the one who are receiving and learning from the local community and the local organization. The only impact that that the visitor can achieve is actually through the affordable price that they pay for the experience, similar to any other touristic experience that they would purchase during their travel.
Okay. Other questions? Michael?
So, Patrick, I work for Brawer NYC. We run the green market.
Oh, sure.
And so I was just wondering if, you're doing a lot of work to make sure that the goods, collecting goods to support people who need them, but do you give much thought to where the goods come from?
Yeah, that's actually
Like local farmers, for example.
Yeah, it's actually a timely question because we're the answer is yes. We have our model is that when people are buying things on our site to donate, whether it's food or other items, they're paying a common retail price for those items, and we're sourcing those goods at a wholesale price. We don't charge to host the drive. We don't charge to make deliveries. Everything is funded by the gap between the retail and the wholesale price. So the wholesalers that we're working with, in the case of food, to date are the wholesalers that supply supermarkets. Having said that, we just entered into a partnership with the Center for Science and the Public Interest. They sponsor the annual Food Day. That may be something you're familiar with. And so we're organizing a national we're terming it Real Food Drive campaign, encouraging organizations to raise fresh produce instead of canned goods. And we're hoping to be able to pilot the source of those goods in a couple of select places from local growers, based upon what's available, at that time of the year. So we've been talking to an organization down in Washington D.C. that wants to partner with us. Maybe that's something we can talk about because we think food drives are typically a very local kind of giving, and so the idea of being able to have local goods donated by local people to help local folks is a very powerful way to try and accomplish helping those people.
Hi, this is a question for all of you. Can you talk about the role that technology and or culture plays in, first of all, your mission or your project and how it shapes your mission? Some of you had very specific, we call your project seems a bit more specific in terms of volunteerism, like short day trips and things of that nature. But can you guys talk a little bit about the role that technology and or culture played in shaping your project and shaping your mission itself?
Maybe I should go first because my project's the oldest. And literally, it was a New York-based project until I saw the internet in 1995. And I was looking at it with a group of designers, and we were trying to figure out how to use the new medium. This became our first co-project. That group was O2. They're still around, Ecological Design Network. And an interesting example of how technology helped us, the first thing we worked on was the iconography, and it was really a great community builder to talk about what kind of symbols do we need. Then we were ready to distribute them, and we realized if we distribute them as a font, they would work with any computer program people already had. So for $1, we could put it on a floppy disk and mail it anywhere in the world. And it lowered the barriers tremendously, and that was still when people were going to internet cafes. We help people discover their own homes through their computers. So it went back and forth, and we think about using the information web in service of the web of life. And that's been part of our mission all along. So I'll let someone else answer from there.
I guess the product that I showed is very technology. It's an app. The functionality that I showed of text to voice, walking around, and having full access. It saves all the text to the device, so you don't have to have internet access to use it. It uses algorithms to come up with the list of relevant articles and then test questions to verify knowledge. I mean, it's all enabled by some, fairly recent advances in technology. And what I built is not complete, but some of it is, very in tune with some advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And sometimes it gets a bad rap, but I feel like the technical tools that have advanced so dramatically in the last 20 years as I've grown up have aided my education so much, and I think that there's so much more room for improvement there with technology. So I see it as, it's something that's, a natural progression. The way people learn is going to change over time, and I think that we can use technology to learn more efficiently and learn more diverse types of knowledge. And the traditional way of going to school, reading a book and going to the library, still can work, but we can supplement it with technology and really learn at an accelerated rate.
So everybody else want to answer that question?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. So for what we do, I would say the technology aspect of it is that in the broadest sense, we're looking to take what is traditionally an offline activity, a physical activity of a food drive, a blanket drive, and whatnot, and shift a lot of that activity into an online activity. So that's all technology driven. The cultural part for us is related to that shift in behavior, in that we've thought a lot about what is it that causes somebody to help somebody else, in our case with this kind of giving. And we've wrestled a little bit with this notion of many people give because it makes them feel good to help somebody else, and that donation experience or helping experience is empowered the more direct it is. So if you're bringing a blanket to some place where it's going to help somebody, that may be a more powerful donation experience than buying a blanket that gets delivered for you. So we've thought a lot about, and I would describe this to culture, how it is that people think about these things, and what can we do to facilitate the change, so you get the benefit of sort of the efficiencies that I talked about before, but you retain for the people who are making donations a good experience, which ideally causes them to do this thing, to help somebody else.
I'll just say quickly that in past decades, technology has taken away a lot of jobs, and with what we're trying to do with the Internet of Things for climate is to show all the kinds of jobs that would get created in terms of rehabbing existing buildings and infrastructure.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Is there one question left?
At AmpYourGood, do you find any limitations in where you're able to effectively operate? Or is it just domestic within a certain radius of distribution centers and stuff?
So for depending on the kind of drive, we have different limitations. With food drives, we operate within the lower 48 states. We don't have any international operations, and that's principally a fulfillment issue. We're guaranteeing to somebody that's making the donation through our platform that whatever it is that they donated gets to the place that they have donated to. And so there are some challenges internationally that we don't face domestically in terms of that issue. And then some of the other kinds of drives that we host, we just face limitations because we haven't built out our fulfillment capabilities yet. Building materials would be one of those.
And are you able to operate only on a planned basis, as a planned drive, or can you deal with something on an emergency basis? Are you able, if you don't have something, could you spin something up?
From a technology standpoint, we can. I think with one of the similarities that our platform has with crowdfunding platforms is that whoever is sponsoring the thing that is supposed to be raised, whether it's in response that's going to respond. Right? So it's fundamentally, the that are most successful are the.
Again, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know it's cold, and I know we all want to be home and snuggle up in our covers. You're welcome to stick around, talk to the panelists, talk to each other. Just make sure you're sort of cleaned around your seat. Make sure you're not leaving any bags, water bottles, or anything like that. And I wish you a healthy and happy evening. All right, thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
I love what you guys are.
I could probably help you.
Oh, good. Hi, I'm Wendy.
Yeah, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
I'm actually creating a, for all intents and purposes, map crowdsourcing publishing using open source software.
Oh, yeah? What stage are you in with them?
I'm actually presenting this weekend at Science X at NYU. I'm presenting this weekend at the event at NYU.
At NYU?